Welcome to the Week 7 recap and your preview for the Major League Balatro Playoffs. We'll be previewing the quarterfinals, recapping all the games from this week, so let's jump into it. The first game of the week was Rarran against Gothic Lord UK. Rarran was playing for their playoff life, needing a win to fend off Halion. They also could even skip Roffle into third place. Game 1, Yellow Deck Gold Stake was the playground, and Rarran played this extremely well against Gothic. Gothic went with the double throwback angle, but the obelisk was just too much, and Rarran came away with the victory. Game 2, we had checkered deck white stake. We went to Rarran's pick, and unfortunately for Rarran, despite having a very great setup, there was a couple of little misplays in the big blind while trying to really make a lot of economic value, and they lost the final life, giving Gothic the victory. So then we headed to game 3. We went to checkered deck white stake again, but this time there was no misplays. Rarran with a ×8 obelisk, tons of glass, sock and busk, and Chad photo. I mean, if you name it, Rarran had it. Just an incredible build to put up a ton of points and take out Gothic Lord UK and secure his spot in the playoffs. Our second game of the week was Nandre versus Fur, and neither of these competitors could make the playoffs at this point, but both of which were having a ton of fun and looking to, just have the record be a little bit higher for the end of the season. Fur, on Gold Stake Plasma Deck, Nandre's Playground, was able to put together a fantastic chip build and take out Nandre. And then we moved to game 2. This time we played Plasma Deck on White Stake, and it was a really interesting match back and forth. I think Nandre's build was phenomenal, but Fur made some really veteran heads-up moves and was able to get a few Red Seal glasses with a level 11 flush, the double Bloodstone oops, and pull it all the way to E22 in the end. The Seltzer, of course, helping the Brainstorm. And then we moved on to game 3. Fur, already securing the match victory, was able to find a hack, Dusk, Bloodstone, Blueprint, oops. I mean, it was another amazing build out of Fur, throwing up E14, and really one of the most well-played games we've had all season. Although there wasn't much on the line, Fur really showing out. Nandre played very well in these games, but Fur was just too much, and Fur takes it 3-0. In the Bloodstone division, we had a very good battle between Edsy and Dr. Spectre. Last season, this game was in the final week as well, and the winner won the title of the Bloodstone division. It went to Edsy. This time around, Doctor needed a 3-0 to fend off being insecure number 1 in the Bloodstone division. So, game 1, we go to Purple Stake Yellow Deck, and the Bloodstone build was just a little too much for what Doc was able to put together. Edsy was able to secure the game, 211 million to 24 million, and there was an there was an idol for both players, but that Bloodstone is really what made the difference. We move on to game 2. This time we went to Gold Stake Ghost Deck, and the Doc had one of the most incredible setups you'll ever see on a Gold Stake game. 3 idols, 2 dusks. It really does not get better than that. Edsy, of course, 3 idols, a dusk, and a photo. It was just an extra onk that Doc found because Edsy skipped to get to the PvP because his idol hit after the small blind. It's kind of a little bit of misfortune on Edsy's side that his idol hit earlier and then Doc's hit later, allowing them to get that extra onk for the extra idol. But Doc, for much of this game, had much higher econ, and it really paid off in the end. We move to the final game, though. Blue Deck, Purple Stake, and the competitors had the exact same setups. The difference was, on the final reroll with hundreds of dollars available, Edsy was able to find a smeared when their Ancient Joker didn't hit. And the Ancient Joker didn't hit on Doc's side. There was no stars to be found, couldn't change the suits. And due to that smeared Joker, allowing Edsy to play into their Red Seal hearts, Red Seal glass hearts, unlike Doc, Edsy comes out with the victory with E16 and takes the game 2-1. we now move on to my game against Roffle, and similar to Doc versus Edsy, really this game was all about placement. Both Roffle and I already made the playoffs. Roffle looking to fend off Rarran from moving above them in the seeding. I was looking to secure first place over Balatro Bear. Game 1, we had White Stake Ghost Deck, my arch nemesis, and Roffle was able to put together simply a better build with a lot more econ, finding Ancient Choker, finding Sock and Buskin, and while they didn't find the idol, there really wasn't enough deck manipulation at this point for the idol to matter that much, and Roffle comes away with the victory. So we moved on to game 2. We got Checkered Deck White Stake, and this time the economy was really flipped. I was able to find a ton of money. We see that golden ticket Chad to kind of end things off. I found that in the final ante, but several Red Seal Glass Kings, the Sock, the Chad, and a ×8 Ricky is what put it all together for me in this game, and I was able to come away and tie it 1-1. And then game 3 was an absolute gem of a match. I was down to my final life. It was 4-1. I had no hope of beating Roffle. I barely beat the big blind, and with only $10 to my name, I rolled into an oops with my Bloodstone build. And immediately from there, everything took off. I ended up having tons of Red Seal Glass Jacks and came away with the victory with that Oops plus Bloodstone build together, putting up E16. And I did secure the 2-1 victory and secured first place in the Onyx division. Bean and Scooty would be playing one another in our next match. Scooty eliminated from playoffs, so it really had been playing well, especially as of late, taking on Bean, who just needed a win now to pass up Dr. Spectre for first place in the Bloodstone division. So game 1, we played the Gold Stake Ghost Deck combination, and really Scooty had a grasp on this game, got Bean down to 1 life, but Bean at the last second figured it all out. The brainstorm came out, the Chad, the Sock, the photo, and it felt like every time Scooty had Bean for their final life, Bean would use the economy, and credit to Bean doing a great job with the econ and the purple seals, would roll a single Joker to put him just ahead, and that kept going all the way until the final battle with them both on 1 life, and Bean putting up 12 million. So we moved on to game 2, White Stake on the Erratic deck. Really fun game here, but the Red Seal Glass Kings, the Ancient Joker, the Dusk, it was a beautiful setup for Bean, putting up E17 over the E11 of Scooty. And then in our final match, Scooty would end up losing to a blind on the Zodiac deck on Gold Stake, and that would be the end of that. So Bean comes away with the 3-0. Game 6 of the week was between Balatro Bear and Nito. Again, this game didn't really matter. Bear locked up in the 2 spot. Nito knocked out of playoff contention. And in game 1, we had Black Stake Ghost Deck, and Nito struggled a little bit against the blind. Luckily for Bear, they rolled into a photo that Nito just did not see. I think it was a difference of either a Joker block or just a singular roll. So we moved on to game number 2. And this time, we had a phenomenal build out of Nito, but she was not able to compete with the double trio that Balatro Bear was able to make early on, and that was the difference. It was simply a multiplication of 3, and 2 trios was the real big difference here. So the final game, after Bear solidifying the match victory, looking for the sweep, was able to put together a bunch of Red Seal Queen polychromes that they found in an early pack. Weird game with also having the mine build, but putting up 36 million when it was all said and done. Nito with a similar Joker setup just didn't find the Red Seal polychrome queens and was able to utilize them in the same way, and Bear walks away with the 3-0. The penultimate game of the final regular season week was Halion versus Justin. Halion eliminated from playoff contention with the rare victory, but still playing for some pride here. It was a very entertaining matchup between the two, and Halion was able to squeak out a victory on White Stake Ghost Deck. All the retriggers available to Halion was really the difference. Justin had a kind of opportunity early on to kind of put the game away, but didn't really recognize the value of playing the one big hand over multiple smaller hands, and that is what cost them there. So then we moved on to game 2, Yellow Deck, White Stake, and Halion once again was on their final life. And Justin was doing a phenomenal job, but Halion just able to find a little bit more. And it was the cat that really made the difference, winning by ×6 and the cat being ×5 there. The Vagabond spawning a death for Halion in the PvP was an incredible sight to see and really secured the victory there. And then in the final game, we went to Plasma Gold Stake, just a despicable combination. And Halion was able to get 2 Chads and a blueprint to utilize on some stone cards, which was just enough chips to pass up Justin and secure the 3-0 victory to end the season for him. And finally, the most anticipated game of the week. We had Malf versus C-Dubs. The winner makes the playoffs. The loser is out. And in the first game, we had Nebula Deck White Stake, a devious pick by Malf on C-Dubs' famous White Stake gameplay this season. Nebula Deck really limiting what you can do. And Malf played it very vanilla, played straights, was able to come out on top over C-Dubs. We moved to game 2, Ghost Deck Gold Stake. Gold Stake, Malf's choice, Ghost Deck, C-Dubs', and C-Dubs would end up falling to the small blind after using a few Wraiths. The real problem for C-Dubs is they were never able to scale Constellation with its rental tag. They just weren't able to make money early on. And by the time they were able to start making money in this small blind, they didn't have enough points to clear it. So with those 2 games, Malf secured a spot in the playoffs. And then my power decided to go out. So we're looking at Malf's perspective on Abandoned Deck White Stake for a little bit of fun and fantasy purposes. And Malf secured the sweep actually with 1,000,000 points there, winning the White Stake Abandoned Deck matchup with a nice Bloodstone build, but getting those re-triggers on the glass card. And that would finish off the regular season for Season 2 of Major League Balatro. So we take a look at the final standings for the regular season. Firstly, Onyx Division, your host was able to secure number 1 with 24 points, 6 wins, and 18 round wins. Coming up in second was Balatro Bear, who was able to defeat me in a match, my only loss of the season. Number 3, Roffle at 17 points, and Rarran securing that playoff spot with 1 point above Halion at 16 points. Halion, of course, had the tiebreaker, beating Rarran in their match. Gothic Lord UK at 10 points, and then Nito and Justin rounding out the bottom of the leaderboard at 5 and 3 points. We look now at the Bloodstone division. Being with 23 points, it took till the final week to finally re-secure first place after defeating Doc week 1, and Bean would get that first place seeding. Dr. Spectre in number 2 at 21, Edsy 3 at 18, and then Malf coming in clutch, beating C-Dubs and securing 4th place with 15 points. Fur actually jumps C-Dubs with 12 points to end the season, and is right there close to a playoff spot. Really keep your eyes out for Fur in season number 3. As long as they decide they would like to come back, we would love to have them, and I really think Fur could be one to watch out for. Scooty and Nandre rounding out the standings in the Bloodstone division. Now looking at the playoff bracket for Major League Balatro. The first game on Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern. All the quarterfinal games will be at 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Thursday. First game, myself versus Malf. Game number 2 on Tuesday, we have Bean versus Rarran in the 4th seed from the Onyx division. We have the 3rd game, Dr. Spectre versus Roffle, a rematch of last year's semifinal, arguably the greatest game of Major League Balatro in the history of the competition, and we get to witness it once again on Wednesday. And then Thursday, we got Balatro Bear versus Edsy. I'm so glad to see Bear in the playoffs this time around. Really one of the best players in the league, consistently underrated, and taking on last year's 2nd place finisher in Edsy. This is going to be a fantastic match. I think all of these games are worthy of final matches, so you're getting 4 of them in 1 week in the quarterfinals. You should be hooked to Twitch. Of course, all the VODs will be uploaded to YouTube, and every playoff game will be casted. Now taking a look at your final fantasy week for week number 7. Kiznats was able to come in first place with 392 points. We see a ton of people with 367, but Kiznats was able to make a separation and secure number 1 for week number 7. You of course can join the Discord, DM me, and get yourself a free Major League Balatro hat. And the overall standings for your Major League Balatro fantasy season: Chief 30 Rack finishing in first place, taking over Kozak at the last second. Kozak coming in second, and Consolation Prize coming in third. All three of you have earned differing Major League Balatro merch gifts. Please reach out to me again on the Discord. It's the easiest way. There's a link down in the description below to Zano TV's Discord, but you can also DM. And as soon as we confirm that you are who you say you are, we'll get you those prizes. But thank you so much for everybody playing Major League Balatro Fantasy. We'll make tweaks to Season 3. I think we can make it even more fun. If there's enough people interested, we could even make it so that people can have their own private leagues and twist rules and whatnot. But thank you so much for making this a wonderful event, and hopefully we'll even have more stats to track next season to make it even more complicated. And of course, one more time, the schedule for the playoffs: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all games at 5 p.m. Eastern. First one, myself versus Malf. Bean versus Rarran on Tuesday. Wednesday, Dr. Spectred versus Roffle. And then Thursday, Baleno Spirit versus Edsy. These semifinals will be on Saturday, October 11th. First one between quarterfinal 1 winner and the quarterfinal 3 winner will be at 11 a.m. Eastern. The second one at 3:30 p.m. Eastern will be between quarterfinal 2 winner and the quarterfinal 4 winner. And then Sunday, the grand finale, 11 a.m. Eastern, hopefully at a time that everybody will be able to enjoy watching across the globe. I cannot wait to be casting that game, or I mean maybe playing in it, but that is your schedule for the playoffs. Let's jump into the previews. First, we have to go over the playoff format. It is going to switch from a best of 3 to a best of 5 format. All 5 games don't have to be played. Whoever wins 3 games first will end the series. We switch off choosing both elements of deck and stake. This means one person doesn't select the deck and the other person the stake. One person selects both, and we go back and forth with the higher seed choosing first. This means in a best of 5, if the game went all 5, the higher seed would get to do this 3 times while the lower seed only twice. This is trying to give some credence and advantage to players who did better in the regular season. A player cannot choose the same exact combo twice. This means if I choose Ghost Deck White Stake, I cannot choose that again. I would have to choose a different stake or a different deck if I want to play in Ghost Deck or White Stake. And furthermore, just a note for the finals: if 2 players play each other with the same seed from opposite divisions, whoever scored more points in the regular season becomes the higher seed for the grand finals. Game 1, myself versus Malf. So the preview for this one is we know Malf on their 2 opportunities is going to take it to gold stake. I think in these matches, it is very key for myself to play as much of a base Balatro game as possible. I think Malf is extremely good at that. Of course, while throwing variants in there, Malf has a tendency to go for skips, go for variants. But I think on gold stake, that's sometimes a trap. Like, it's really hard for me to obviously preview my own games because I don't want to give too much away to the opponent. I also, like, obviously know exactly the way I'm thinking, so I could give away too much information. But Malf doesn't really need divergence. They're such a good gold stake player, and I think Malf is going to maybe do too many interesting decisions on gold stake. So in those 2 matchups, if there are 2, I really want to just play sound Balatro and make sure I'm winning each stake. Of course, a little bit of a Balatro multiplayer mind, knowing that the PvPs have to score very high. But more than anything, I don't want to lose lives to blinds. I want to extend the game. I think that is the way forward for these gold stake matchups against Malf. And then I will give Malf this. I am taking them the white stake. I won't give away the deck that I am thinking of going with, or the couple of decks I'm thinking of going with. But I think my best game is when I take someone to the min-maxing heaven that is white stake, trying to get every ounce of value out of every single decision, because you're able to, because the blinds are so easy to beat and there's so many resources available to you. And I think I just have a very good mind for that. I think, you know, going back and forth with Dr. Spectred last summer on world records was really a great way at practicing this way, and then I've played so much Balatro multiplayer since. So that's kind of my preview for this one. I think it's going to be really close, and I'll be honest, I didn't want to play Malf. There's no disrespect to C-Dubs. I think C-Dubs is a phenomenal player, But Malf is such a wild card, and the gold stake of it all, the ability even on white stake, Malf may take a crazy rare skip or two and just get something I don't. And it doesn't matter how well you play efficiently. If your opponent does this and creates some kind of variance, you can't always beat it. And that's a scary prospect. It's like, do you then take the risk on the variance? So it's going to be an interesting matchup for sure. Bean versus Rarran. This one is extremely interesting because while Rarran has been a white stake gamer so far, Rarran has just dominated on gold stakes, including beating Roffle, and that was kind of the reason that Roffle lost that match. Is Roffle decided to take Rarran to gold stake and then lost their own choice. And we know that Bean has, I don't want to say struggled, because Bean has shown out, like in the multiplayer tournaments on super high difficulties, how well they can play. However, in Major League Balatro specifically, there's been a couple times where Bean is maybe just not played as well, or maybe could have made some slightly different choices on gold stake. And I really could see Rarran doing that, going maybe even purple stake, just throwing a wrench in there if they have a deck that they really like and they want to play it several times on high stake variations. Maybe Rarran goes like purple, orange, and gold on a certain deck. Meanwhile, on Bean's side of thing, I think we see Ghost White. Furthermore, I would not be shocked if Bean is the competitor to kind of pull out the one, I think a little bit of a loophole that in future iterations of the rules for playoffs I may switch, which is maybe we see Ghost White, Ghost Red, and Ghost Green stake, just keeping it on the lowest stakes possible, but consistently playing Ghost deck. And that is because, like I have mentioned, Ghost deck plays so different than every other deck. I think Ghost deck really is Econ is king, because there's no need to do any kind of work to make spectral cards. They're just gifted to you if you have enough money, which in a weird way can dumb down the game a little bit in terms of there's not as much complexities, that's the word, to the game in between blinds. It's make money, I'll see all the stuff I need to manipulate the deck in the shop. I think Rarran is going to have to practice that. They're going to have to get really good at that, and they're going to have to figure out when to use those spectral cards. What advantage can we get while playing Bean on their home turf in this deck and stake combo? And how do I match Bean on economy? I know it seems fruitless, like, to even try that, but at the end of the day, you're not going to beat Bean consistently unless you can get close to their econ generation, and that's something Rarran's going to have to do on Bean's choices. Dr. Spectred and Roffle. I mean, what can you say about this matchup? It's even more interesting this time around than last time. A, because of the history of that incredible best of 5 from last season, the semifinals. But B, Roffle has really done great on lower stake difficulties this season. He last season just consistently would always take someone to gold stake. But this year that hasn't been the case, and in fact have lost a couple of rounds on gold stake. And I just don't know if Roffle wants to compete with Doctor. I do think Roffle wants the happy medium, and that is black stake. I think Roffle's choices, the two that they will get, will be on black stake. I'm curious to see the deck. But black stake does, I think, offer this really, really nice, intriguing version of Balatro where there's still hard decisions. What Eternals do you take? Now Onks are a little bit more viable. And I do think we could see the Ghost deck black stake combination, and maybe even Ghost deck purple stake from Roffle, in terms of what to play against Dr. Spectred, and just force those kind of tough decisions in the shop. When to onk, how to onk, what Eternals to grab. Do you grab the, Econ Eternals and, build that money, but at the same time, you can't use that Joker spot anymore. And I do think that can kind of put Doc into a bind. On Dr. Spectred's side, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know what they're going to do. I truly have no idea what Doc is going to choose. I think they've played everything this season, and I think that might have been part of Doc's strategies. They knew they were good enough to win on all different sorts of decks and stakes. They have not given any information on how they're going to approach these playoffs, because they've just been, Doc's been able to win on everything. It doesn't matter if it's gold, white, what kind of deck, painted, purple, rainbow, it doesn't even exist. Doc has been really good. Really, the only time we've seen Doc somewhat struggle was that first game against Bean, and that was after not playing multiplayer for a while, and then taking it to Ghost deck white stake 3 straight times just to try to beat Bean on their home turf. So, in my opinion, I'll give you my best guess. I think Doc takes it to simplistic routes. I think we could see red deck white stake. I also think we could see the polar opposite, but I do think we're going to see an extreme here. We could see gold stake plasma, which Doc has just been playing so much of with their fast speed runs on gold stake that maybe they have a really good feel for it. But I think Doc wants to take it to an extreme. Either extreme min-maxing on white stake in a red deck or a Zodiac deck, or extremely difficult on like a plasma gold. I don't think we're going to see the medium. I think Roffle's going to pick the medium, and I think Roffle may even have an advantage there. And finally, we have Edzy TTV versus Balatro Spare. And this one is so interesting because I feel like I know exactly what these players are going to choose. I will say I'm not positive on the decks, but Edzy has been a purple stake merchant. Edzy, infamous for the gold stake games in the Bloodstone division in season 1. This season has switched things up and gone the purple stake because they don't want to deal with the variance that a perishable Joker can cause to the game, where if the tags get misaligned due to skips, or simply a perishable Joker perishes a blind early for you and not your opponent because you saw it earlier because you had more money in the shop, it can lead to these weird variances in the game that Edzy doesn't feel they need in the game because they can outplay their opponent. They don't want to deal with that, so they take it to the highest difficulty possible without perishable, without rental Jokers. I'm not sure on the deck. I do think we could see Ghost deck. Edzy has been playing a ton of it. It is our most played deck all season long for Major League Balatro. It is a ton of fun, and it's just the amount of experience Edzy now has on that Ghost deck that makes me feel that way. Balatro Bear is taking it to white stake, and I think Bear would be smart to take it to places that are interesting on white stake, in the sense that they're just not generic in how you play it. Something like a painted deck. I mean, Bear's so good at the Baron Mime in forcing value in non-retriggerable scoring ways, in more in hand or other ways. And I really like painted deck for Balatro Bear in this matchup, where it's something that Bear has experience on that Edzy may not, and it just plays slightly different. Same thing with something like, I know this is crazy, a Nebula deck, where I think Edzy, when they go to white stake, they've learned a lot from maybe myself or Doc or Bean, and you build into your consumable slots, you make tons of value. That doesn't happen. I mean, Nebula deck, even on white stake, is such a different Balatro game because of the one consumable slot. I don't think everyone fully understands how different that is. And I think in a weird way, Bear on this lower stake gameplay where it's easy to beat blinds and easy to get resources, but with the restriction that Nebula deck has, that could be an advantage for Bear. So I think this will be maybe the most intriguing matchup of all in the quarterfinals. And then, of course, I will be trying to recap the quarterfinals and preview the semifinals Thursday night going into Friday, but that's going to wrap it up for me. Thank you so much for watching. Hit the like button if you like. Comment down below who you think is going to take the title and your predictions for this game. Thank you for making this season a success, and we'll see you soon.